What if the girl renting a small room in a poor single dad's home was hiding the biggest secret of all? Daniel only wanted help with bills, but he never imagined this tenant would change his life forever. The truth will leave you speechless. The rain hadn't stopped for hours. Drops trickled down the cracked window panes of Daniel's small home as he sat at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of bills that seemed to grow taller every week. His hands were rough from long days at the construction site. His back ached from double shifts, but his heart was heavier than all of it combined. Being a single father wasn't easy, especially when every penny he earned seemed to disappear faster than it came. Across the table sat his daughter, Lily, a bright little girl with big eyes and hair that always fell into her face when she read. She was hunched over her school book, trying to solve math problems by the dim light of the lamp. Daniel's chest tightened when he noticed the tear in her school bag held together with tape and her worn-out shoes by the door. He promised her a better life after her mother left, but sometimes he feared he was failing. The room for rent sign he had hammered into the gate a week ago was his last hope. He had resisted renting out the spare room for months, not wanting strangers around his daughter, but desperate times forced desperate measures. The rent money could mean food on the table, and maybe even enough to cover Lily's upcoming school fees. Still, as each day passed without a knock at the door, Daniel's hope shrank. That evening, he whispered a short prayer under his breath. "Please, let someone decent come. Someone who won't hurt my little girl." His words were almost drowned out by the sound of thunder rolling outside. Just then, headlights cut through the rain-soaked darkness. A sleek black car slowed to a stop in front of his house. Daniel's pulse quickened. Hardly anyone with that kind of car would bother with a cramped, modest home like his. He leaned toward the window, curious, as the driver's door opened. A young woman stepped out, shielding herself with nothing but her hand against the rain. She looked far too young to be traveling alone, maybe 19 or 20 at most. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, a backpack slung over her shoulder. Despite the rain, she moved with quiet confidence, as if she had done this before. Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly. What was a girl like her doing here, in this part of town, at night? He glanced at Lily, who had already jumped up from her chair, peeking out with innocent curiosity. "Daddy, someone's here!" she exclaimed. By the time Daniel opened the door, the girl was standing at the gate, rain dripping from her hair, her cheeks flushed pink. She offered a small, hopeful smile. "Excuse me," she said softly, almost uncertain. "I saw the sign. Is the room still available?" Daniel blinked, surprised. He hadn't expected anyone tonight, let alone a young college student. "Yes," he replied cautiously. "It's still open. You want to see it now?" She nodded. "If that's okay." For a moment, Daniel hesitated. Something about her felt different, not dangerous. No, she didn't look like trouble, but there was a kind of quiet grace about her, like she didn't quite belong in this neighborhood. He didn't notice the brand of her shoes, the subtle quality of her jacket, or the way the driver in the luxury car had respectfully waited for her to reach the gate before pulling away. To him, she was just another student, probably struggling like many others. He stepped aside, allowing her in. Lily rushed to the doorway, her small hand clutching her father's. "Hi," she chirped, grinning up at the stranger. The girl bent down slightly, meeting Lily's gaze with a warmth that immediately softened the room. "Hi there," she said gently. "What's your name?" "Lily," the little girl answered proudly. The girl smiled wider before straightening up and looking at Daniel again. "My name's Sophie. I'm starting college nearby, and I really need a place to stay. I don't have much, but I promise I'll be quiet and respectful." Her voice carried sincerity, but also something unspoken, like she was running from a world Daniel couldn't imagine. He nodded slowly, though still cautious. "The room's not much, just a bed, a desk, and a window that doesn't close properly. Rent's modest, though." "That's perfect," Sophie said quickly, almost too quickly. Daniel studied her for a moment longer. Her clothes were damp, her hair messy from the rain, but there was no complaint in her eyes, just a calm determination. He didn't know why, but something about her presence made him feel at ease. "All right then," he finally said, offering a faint smile. "Come inside. Let's get you dry before we talk more." As Sophie stepped into the small, warm house, Lily tugged at her father's sleeve and whispered, "She seems nice, Daddy. Can she stay?" Daniel chuckled softly, ruffling his daughter's hair. He had no idea that the girl standing in his living room wasn't just a college student. She was the daughter of one of the city's most powerful millionaires, seeking refuge not in money, but in the kind of home only love and simplicity could provide. And with that first step through his door, their lives quietly began to change forever. The days that followed Sophie's arrival unfolded in ways Daniel never expected. At first, he thought she would keep to herself, like most tenants he had imagined, coming and going quietly, locked away in her room, a stranger under his roof. But Sophie was different. She didn't just rent the room. She seemed to bring life into the house. Every morning, Daniel would wake up early to prepare breakfast for Lily before heading to his construction job. He wasn't the best cook. Burnt toast and overcooked eggs had become a routine. But Sophie surprised him one day. She slipped into the kitchen, her hair tied up messily, and said, "Mr. Daniel, why don't you let me handle breakfast today? You're already running late." Before he could argue, she had rolled up her sleeves and started cooking. The smell of fresh pancakes and eggs filled the house, a scent Daniel hadn't experienced since before his wife left. Lily sat at the table, clapping her hands. "These are way better than Dad's," she giggled, her face lighting up. Daniel, embarrassed but touched, muttered, "Well, I guess I've been replaced." But deep down, he felt something he hadn't in years, a sense of family. Sophie didn't stop there. In the evenings, when Daniel returned home exhausted, he often found her sitting with Lily at the small wooden table, patiently helping her with homework. Math problems, reading exercises, even school projects. Sophie guided Lily with patience and care. Her laughter filled the little house as she encouraged Lily to try harder, to believe in herself. One night, Daniel paused at the doorway, quietly watching them. Lily leaned over her notebook, struggling with multiplication, her face scrunched in frustration. Sophie leaned closer, her voice soft. "Don't give up, Lily. You're smarter than you think. Just take it one step at a time." Something about the way she spoke, the kindness in her tone, the way she truly believed in his daughter, made Daniel's throat tighten. He realized this girl wasn't just a tenant anymore. She was slowly becoming part of their lives. Still, there were moments when Daniel noticed her eyes drifting, as if carrying a secret weight. Sometimes she'd pause while washing dishes, staring out the window, lost in thought. Or when Lily would hug her suddenly, Sophie's eyes would glisten with unshed tears. Daniel didn't pry. He respected her privacy, but he wondered what kind of past had shaped a girl so young yet so gentle. Then came the day Daniel fell ill. His long shifts and sleepless nights finally caught up with him. He woke up with a fever, too weak to get out of bed, panic rising in his chest as he thought of his second job, delivering groceries in the evening. Without that extra income, even one missed day meant less food, another unpaid bill. But before he could drag himself up, Sophie appeared at his door with a tray of soup and medicine. "Don't even think about moving," she said firmly. "You need rest. I'll take care of things." And she did. She prepared Lily for school, cooked meals, cleaned the house, and even bought groceries with her own money. When Daniel protested, embarrassed, she shook her head. "Family helps each other, right? You'd do the same for me." Those words sank deep into Daniel's heart. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, realizing how much this young woman had given them in such a short time. She wasn't just filling a room. She was filling the emptiness in their lives. Lily, too, grew attached to Sophie quickly. One night, as Daniel tucked her into bed, Lily whispered, "Daddy, I wish Sophie was my big sister. She makes everything fun." Daniel smiled faintly, though a lump formed in his throat. He never wanted to burden Sophie with his struggles, but her presence was changing everything. The loneliness he had carried for years seemed to fade, replaced by laughter, warmth, and a quiet sense of hope. Yet Daniel still didn't know who Sophie truly was. He saw her as a simple, hard-working student trying to survive in a tough world. He had no idea that she was hiding from a life of wealth and privilege, choosing to live simply to discover what it meant to be truly loved for who she was. As she sat with Lily one evening, brushing the little girl's hair while humming softly, Daniel stood in the doorway again, his chest heavy with unspoken gratitude. For the first time in years, his house didn't feel empty. It felt like a home. What Daniel didn't realize was that Sophie wasn't just finding a home for herself. She was quietly changing his life forever. The evening was quiet, the kind of calm that followed a long, tiring week. Daniel sat at the dinner table, sipping tea, while Sophie and Lily worked on a jigsaw puzzle on the floor. Their laughter echoed softly, blending with the sound of the rain outside. For Daniel, moments like this were rare treasures, simple, peaceful, filled with love. Then came the knock, firm, measured. Not the casual rap of a neighbor, but something heavier, purposeful. Daniel frowned, exchanging a quick glance with Sophie. "I'll get it," he said, standing up cautiously. When he opened the door, a sleek black car stood parked by the curb, its polished surface reflecting the dim streetlight. From it stepped a tall man in a tailored suit, his presence commanding even in silence. His eyes swept the small, modest home before settling on Daniel. "Good evening," the man said smoothly. "I'm looking for Sophie." Daniel's chest tightened. His mind raced. Was this her boyfriend? A relative? Or worse, someone she was hiding from? He turned slightly, calling back into the house. "Sophie, someone's here for you." Sophie froze when she saw the man at the door. Her face paled, her breath catching in her throat. "Dad?" she whispered. Daniel blinked. "Dad?" The man stepped forward, his expression softening as his eyes fell on her. "My dear, do you have any idea how worried I've been? You disappeared without a word. No calls, no messages. Do you know how many people I've sent searching for you?" Daniel stood frozen, the pieces clicking together slowly in his mind. The expensive car, the way Sophie always avoided questions about her past, the quiet grace she carried, as though she didn't belong to the struggles of his world. And now, this man, who could only be someone of power, someone far above their simple lives. Lily tugged at Sophie's hand, confused. "Why is he calling you his daughter?" Sophie knelt down beside her, her voice trembling yet steady. "Because he is, Lily. This is my father." Daniel's mouth went dry. You're a millionaire's daughter," Sophie finished for him, her eyes meeting his with a quiet plea. "But I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't come here with money, Mr. Daniel. I came here because I needed something more." Her father stepped inside, his gaze sweeping over the humble home. There was no judgment in his eyes, only a kind of curiosity. Finally, he looked at Daniel. "You gave her shelter. You took care of her without knowing who she was. For that, I owe you my gratitude." Daniel shook his head quickly, still in shock. "I didn't do anything special. She became part of our family." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "That's exactly why I stayed, Dad. Here, I wasn't a millionaire's daughter. I wasn't someone people tried to use. I was just Sophie. And for the first time, I felt like I belonged." Silence hung heavy in the room, broken only by Lily's innocent voice. "Does this mean Sophie has to go away now?" The question pierced Daniel's heart. He hadn't realized until now how deeply Sophie had become part of their lives. The thought of losing her was unbearable. But Sophie turned to her father, her chin lifted in quiet defiance. "I may be your daughter, but I choose where I call home. And right now, this feels like home." Her father studied her for a long moment, then let out a slow breath. "If this is what makes you happy, Sophie, then I won't take it from you. But promise me one thing. Don't shut me out completely." She nodded, relief washing over her. Then she turned back to Daniel and Lily, smiling through her tears. I came here looking for a place to stay, but I found so much more. I found people who cared, who made me feel like family. Daniel's voice cracked as he replied, "And you'll always have a place here, Sophie. Not as a tenant, but as part of our family." Lily threw her arms around Sophie, giggling. "So you are my big sister now." Everyone laughed softly, the tension breaking, replaced by warmth. For Daniel, the house didn't just feel full, it felt alive. He realized that wealth wasn't measured in money or status, but in moments like this. In the bonds formed, in the love shared. Outside, the rain finally stopped. Inside, around the small dinner table, they sat together. Not as landlord and tenant, not as millionaire's daughter and single father, but as something far greater. A family. And for the first time in a long time, Daniel knew that tomorrow would not just bring struggle. It would bring hope.